It is my pleasure to introduce our friend, driver of a 2020 Audi E-TRON, Mr. Justin Gaethje. Next, I'd like to introduce Mr. Todd Romero, who's going to be our host of the Q&A. Mr. Todd Romero from Altitude Sports Network.
So obviously, when you watch the video clips, the nickname, the highlight is obviously jumps off the page. But some of the things that I think fans want to know, when you finished at the University of Northern Colorado, All-American wrestler, was it your plan all the time to go into MMA? How did the avenue happen for you?
Yeah, so I never planned on fighting. I got a human services degree, social work. That was my plan. And then when I was in college wrestling, they brought a couple UFC fighters. Donald Cerrone, you guys just saw. It's crazy, culmination of events. It's just crazy. GSP, Shane Carwin, and they would all come in, and I was like, these guys are normal. I'm normal. I want to try it. So they would give me a fight during the summers, and I took 7 amateur fights while I was, wrestling. Couldn't make no money. Never thought about fighting for a living. Was always planning on being in social work, working with at-risk youth. And then I graduated, and I was like, I want to try it. And then I won 17 fights in a row, and I was fighting Eddie Alvarez on a main event, or not a main event, on a pay-per-view for Jose Aldo and Max Holloway. So it was just crazy. I can't wait to be done so I can look back and really look at the journey. But for me, I've really bought into not taking it more than one day at a time, because ultimately it will do me no favors.
When you look at that, was there a moment during the amateur career that you're like, hey, I can make a living at this? When did that moment come for you when you realized that that's what I want to do and that you bought all in?
That's a tough question, because nice guys finish last, and I really do consider myself a nice guy, which is really weird to be in the sport that I'm in. So, one more time.
Just as when you finally knew that this is what you were going to do, that you dabbled amateur-wise.
Again, I never knew. I thought I was going to be a social worker. Till today, I think every opponent is better than me. I wake up thinking they're working harder than me, so that I can be 100% prepared. And I've found that to be the most successful route for me. Win or lose, I've been content with my preparation, and so therefore I've, been content with the outcomes.
Well, I would say the UFC, I think 7 bonuses, 4 fight of the nights, 3 knockouts of the night, whatever you want to call it, 7 bonuses. So I think when people see you on a card, at least for me that day, it's like a shot of adrenaline. That people want to see Justin Gaethje fight. You know your audience. Being an All-American wrestler, people don't see that side of you, because the part of the excitement of the sport is what you bring to the cage. Having a background in wrestling, but yet you go out there and it's an all-out war every single time.
When I wrestled, they were the most exciting wrestling matches that, in the duel, there's 10 matches in a duel. People were looking forward to my wrestling match, because I could turn wrestling into an exciting event, which is sometimes hard to do. So it's kind of comes back to that, one day at a time, one fight at a time. I have no fear in there, because I don't fear losing, because I know that, for one, I will have people that support me, and humans recognize effort. You know that I give max effort every time I step in there, and ultimately I know that as a fan, as someone who watches the sport, is educated watching it or not, you recognize effort, and I give max effort every single time. People appreciate that. People that spend their money appreciate you giving them max effort, so I bring that every time.
This past weekend I was watching UFC 248, and the co-main event was unbelievable. It was an all-out war. I saw you there before the fight. You go from that fight, and obviously the main event didn't turn out the way people wanted. I don't think there'll ever be a Justin Gaethje fight like that.
I can assure you that there will never be a fight. I refuse to lose or win like that. So, and that might be not the smartest thing to say, because ultimately you have to win to move on in my sport. But I think I fight for money because that is my living, and the way I fight, you will get paid, and you won't lose your job. So I'm doing good.
Well, I think the one thing about you is the things that are as good as your fights or your post-fight. And I've noticed that in your fights, when a fighter respects you, and the sport's like that. I've never seen such a sport, because it's continuing to grow, where there's such great sportsmanship. You do have your guys that talk a little bit of smack. And I've noticed when you fight, if guys respect you, you respect them. If they come in disrespecting you, they get the same in return. And then, I mean, let's talk about Mr. Vic for one. Talking all that smack. He's now number 45 in, I think, welterweight division now.
Yep. They're just using him for the ragdoll effects in the UFC game now. He's still sleeping, by the way.
Well, he hasn't been right since that fight.
Confidence is such a huge factor in there, and I took his confidence away, and unfortunately for him, I really do feel bad for him, because I know how fickle this game can be, and it really is just one shot here and there, and he's had a streak of bad luck. He's a good fighter, but he's had some bad luck. So yeah, I mean, it hurts. He hurt himself by talking like that. You see it happen consistently. Some guys, McGregor did it because he said those things and backed it up. Rousey did those things, then backed it up. But then when she lost, you dig yourself such a deep hole that it's so hard to come out of. Like, you can't, because they really think they're infallible. Conor McGregor thinks he's infallible. Rousey thought she was infallible. And then when you face adversity like they do, it's like, how do you come back from that? So I'll never think I'm infallible. I think that they can knock me out at any point. And I won't make the same mistake that James Vick or they made. When I lose, I'll own up to it, and I won't make an ass of myself before.
Speaking of that, two fights that you lost could have gone either way. I thought you had the fight won and thought it was stopping.
You guys should have showed those ones, because the one I lost, both fights I lost they will probably both be in the UFC Hall of Fame for fights.
Absolutely.
If I lose, it's probably the best fight ever.
Poirier fight was unbelievable. When you go through that, though, I saw a subtle change after that. I mean, it's hard to say that with 3 first-round knockouts after that, but the fact is, maybe being a little more patient, because you've gone out there and nobody had finished it. Nobody had beaten you until those fights. What did you learn from those fights that made you better?
Yeah, it was such a tough, coming up, 7 amateur fights and then 17 professional fights I won in a row. It was 24 fights, and you can't fix it if it's not broken. I knew there was something wrong with it, but I wasn't losing, and so I couldn't fix it. And then when I lost to Dustin Poirier, I thought I was having, and I found so much success in my previous style, just go out there and turn into chaos. And, Dustin Poirier and Eddie Alvarez, I made the same mistake 2 times in a row. I became too relaxed and confident, and you cannot do that at this level. These guys literally are some of the best athletes in the world, and they have unbelievable confidence. I thought they were broken. Both of the guys, I was like, just kick their leg and it's over, and then smack, and then it's over. So once I took those 2 losses, the second one mostly, I was able to go back to the drawing board, and ultimately the common denominator was don't get hit. If they can't hit me, I hit so hard and I'm so aggressive, I'm never gonna not try to knock you out. But if I don't get hit, then they can't beat me, and I wouldn't have lost those 2 fights if I didn't get hit like that. But it's a weird little game we play. So I'm content with getting knocked out. Again, I think that really is a huge factor for my success, is just being okay with preparation.
I think it was the Barbosa fight, if I'm not mistaken, but it was after, I think it was the post-fight where you're telling the crowd, and I think it was Madison Square, wasn't it? I mean,
that was in Philadelphia.
Okay, Philadelphia.
Yep.
So you're telling them, I love this. I won't say the word, you have to follow that, but
Yeah.
I love this. I mean, this is what it's about. And I think that's where greatness comes from, is that, and I've over 33 years of doing sports, I've interviewed Michael Jordan, I've interviewed some of the greats, and the common denominator is they're not afraid to put everything on the line at every moment to get what they want out.
Yeah, I mean, face your fears is a big thing for me. I think fear holds a lot of people back, and it should always be methodical. You should never just take chances, at the whim. But I put myself in a position so I would be a fool to not want to go in there and take a chance to prove that I'm the best in the world. You know, with something like this, which requires a little bit of luck, a lot of skill, a lot of hard work, but a little bit of luck. And that's something that is very hard to become content with. It's impossible. So you have to, you know,
Accept what reality has.
accept it, yeah, accept the outcome. Again, preparation. My number one rule is never let somebody control my thoughts or emotions, because that's ultimately my choice. And if someone else takes that from me, then I've already lost. That's a big part of mental preparation in fight and in life in general. So just those small things.
Face Your Fears, by the way, is one of his T-shirts. I own one, and you can get that gear, by the way, the violent one.
Yes, sir.
Let's talk about the World Series of Fighting. You held the title, I believe, from 2013 through 2017. And I was doing I found it humorous that the first time you did the backflip off the rope, I think you were suspended, correct? And then the next day, did they reinstate you?
It happened to be in Colorado, as a matter of fact.
And what
they suspended me for 24 hours. They really made themselves look not good.
How did that come to be? Was it just a spur of the moment thing that you did? Because now it's like a signature.
Yeah, I did it. So my mom used to be so mad. I would do it off anything and everything. The fence, the house. I got at the church, we were doing a bake sale. I tried to do it off a countertop that broke, knocked myself out, got stitches. So I've had problems for a long time.
You know, and I should have done this begin. I want to just kind of point out, guys, for all the people that are here, Curtis Razor Blades is here, number 3 heavyweight in the world UFC.
Yeah.
Grant Neal fighting Bellator light heavyweight. We've got Manny Lopez. Manny Lo's in the house, one of the great boxers from Denver. So it's nice to see the fight community come out and support somebody like you. It's a brethren, man. And what's amazing, I think, that I hear from UFC fans is the fact that are these guys really friends most of the time? And you see it with Cerrone. Talk about that fight, how tough that was, because this is a guy that you idolized, a guy that helped pave the way for you, and he's at the end of his career. How tough was that fight for you?
You know, it's actually something I've trained for my whole life. So it wasn't tough at all for me. I have a twin brother, and he was my main, enemy, teammate at all times. So, when you wrestle, you have to understand that your best friend is not your friend in wrestling. If he's your best friend, then you are not making yourself better. Me and Cowboy both got in this for the same reason. That was to prove that we were the best. So I really was hoping that he wasn't going to take the fight when it did happen. But as soon as he signed the contract, then in the contract that I signed, it says you're risking bodily harm, life, or, chronic injury. It says all these things in this paper that I signed. So when I do sign that paper, it does not matter who I'm fighting against. I ultimately have to take from them what they're trying to take from me.
Well, and that leads me to the question. I mean, I think it's the fight everybody wants to see. I don't know if he wants to see the fight, but Notorious is out there. I think it's a dream matchup. I know as a fight fan, I want to see that fight. I mean, you can only do so much to get it done. You can't force Dana White to make the fight.
No.
Is it something that's where's that possibility lie? If you can you give it that, or?
Yeah, so I know nothing. You guys will probably know from the internet before I know. That's how it works. It's crazy. But I can say that it's more sure than it's ever been that I'm going to get either that fight or the winner of the Tony and Khabib fight. I'm in the media and I'm arguing that I'm the rightful owner of the #1 contender spot. I've won 3 fights in a row. Conor has only won 1, but ultimately that man is a superstar. We need him. The sport needs him, and he had to win. So I don't blame him for fighting Cowboy, but now that he's put himself into title contention and he's saying that he wants to fight a title fight, me and him we have to dance. So I'm ready for it. I think if Khabib wins, I can say that I truly believe if Khabib wins, I'm going to fight Conor in May, June, or July. And if Tony wins, then I don't know what the heck's going to happen. I really don't.
Well, and you look at those rankings, and I always take those with a grain of salt because you look at the top 10 fighters in there, and it's full of killers. I mean, that's one thing about the UFC. The top 20 guys, they're full of killers right there.
It's a beautiful spot to be.
And you look at that. There's Khabib, who hasn't lost. You have 2 losses. There's nobody else that has fewer losses in that top 10.
No.
I mean,
it's when you start wrestling at 4 years old, politics is the farthest thing that you would ever have to think about. For one, as a child, and for two, doing something for fun. And I still have fun, and I still think this is fun, but there's a lot of money on the line. So I know politics and business is a huge factor, so I have to keep fighting, I have to keep talking. But ultimately, I'm not going to take the route that some of these guys take and be fake. Because for one, I don't think I'm smart enough to act one way and then be another way. These guys are geniuses.
Let me ask you, and for those that don't know, I think you train at Landau Performance, and also with the Elevation Fight Team. You cross-train with the Genesis guys. What's your week like when you're getting ready? What's it when you're in it? When you're in it, what's it look like for you?
So as soon as I get a date, I pick 10 weeks out on a calendar, and I do not cheat. I don't drink soda. I don't drink alcohol. I try to make the sacrifices that I know I'm going to need to make. Because when you're in there and you get tired, you think, what did I do wrong? And if there's, there should be no question. You should have already asked yourself in the mirror if you've done everything possible. So when you're making that walk, you see fear in people's eyes. It's most likely because they didn't take the necessary steps to be prepared for that instance. Speaking
of the walk and being prepared, can you explain that feeling for you? I think the fans of yours that watch you come into the ring, is it euphoria? What is it like? You ready to? You're calm, but you're excited.
Yeah. It's the most calm state of mind that I feel like I'm in the back, I'm yawning, and my coach is like, "Wake up!" And I'm like, "Dude, I'm ready." And I've trained my life. I've trained my whole life since I was 4 for these circumstances. I've walked onto a mat against one other guy that was trying to beat me, and then it was over. So the walkout is, I hardly retain anything. Once they call me out of that locker room, it's pretty much over for me because you train yourself. It's fight or flight. We all have it in us, and adrenaline's a hell of a drug. So once you can learn to really accept the fight or flight and pick the fight and let the adrenaline flow and be comfortable in the chaos, there's no feeling like it. And so, in order for me to be that way, I have to be free of any emotion, I guess.
Do you hear the fans, or is it?
I don't hear anything.
You're just there. You're that ultra focused.
Right when you come out, and then right when you step in the octagon, you understand that you're under a spotlight, and it's like if you've never been under a spotlight, you're under a spotlight. So you walk in there, it's like, all right, I'm under a spotlight, and distance and space become like a weird thing, but really time is not a thing. I've never understood the element of time when I'm in there.
As this sport continues to progress, and you've seen it coming over from the World Series of Fighting and where this is going, it's one of the fastest growing sports, and with the football rules coming as they are, MMA is it's where it's at. Where do you see this sport going and growing from here?
The biggest thing, I help coach at Denver West with my buddy Rocco, who's the head coach in the back, and girls wrestling has grown so much in the last 3 years alone, and I think the UFC and MMA in general is a huge factor in that. I think wrestling is such a crucial tool for everybody. I would recommend everybody putting their child in wrestling. They might not like it, but it's really it's something that teaches you. It's you against you every single day, and if you could learn that competition and be okay with that competition, then life, it happens every day in life.
Perfect situation. How long? As much as this is a part of your life, I know that the other part of your life is you want to give back to kids. You want to help kids. You want to give them possibilities and show them what they can do in the world. But how much longer will you do it? It's a day-by-day thing, I know you said,
yep.
But is there a goal once you're crowned world champion?
So for me to get here, I have to be, I call it a couple screws loose, or yeah, I'm not always looking out for my health necessarily. I've really done a great job of putting people that I trust around me, that have known me since I was a kid, and some people that just started coaching me when I started fighting. And I trust them. If I ever hear something from them, concern from them, then I would have a conversation with them. But if you watch this sport, I've never been knocked out cold. I've lost by 2 TKOs, but there's many fighters that you don't even know how they're still alive sometimes. It doesn't, and that's terrible to say. It really is.
It's what you signed up for.
I want to help people, but make a living in violence. You know, it's like
it's definitely a yin and yang. It's odd for sure, but
but my ability to inspire the youth now has grown exponentially. Like these, kids are. I was a hard-headed kid. Kids are hard-headed. You know, they pick who they want to listen to, and me having this platform has really allowed me to reach them. And so, even win or lose, championship or no championship, that will help me in what I want to do after this.
I think you brought something up that's crucial for not only guys that are fighters or professional athletes, but can be really used in everyday life, and surrounding yourself with people you trust. And it's become to the point, as big as this sport's getting and as much money that's involved, you've got to have people around you that you have the utmost trust in, because you can't allow that poison to get close to you.
Yeah, I mean, luckily, I surrounded myself early with those people, and so you definitely, if someone's trying to come in now, it's definitely a red flag.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, Trevor Whitman, my coach Trevor Whitman, he was the 2018 Coach of the Year. He's been around this game. He was Manny's coach, and he's been around this game for so long. So that's the main man in my corner that I know is always looking out for me.
The other thing is business opportunities. I mean, you've got Steve Powers and the guys here at Audi that partnered up with you.
Sure.
And you also want to be careful with who you represent and be able to represent and have them, as you be one of their athletes. What a great partnership that is. And this fight game brought you to this point, brought you some great things so far.
It's absolutely beautiful, and I can't wait to put up the R8 against Connor's Bugatti over there.
I think that'll do it. Does anybody else got any questions you may want to ask? Steve, you want to pass through?
I don't, but perhaps.
Yeah, I would love to. If you guys got any questions out there, I would love to.
Take some questions.
Any questions? Ryan Western, everybody.
Don't be shy.
Hey, Justin. Thanks for being here. Rankings are important in your sport, and a lot of times we get caught up in rankings. But as you mentioned earlier, effort is something we always see from you. And here at Audi Denver, we've been lucky to see you put in effort outside the ring with our Wish for Wheels, giving bikes back to kids at the elementary school. And that's been fantastic. So I think you deserve a round of applause and a lot of credit for what you do outside of the ring as well. And we're thankful to have you a part of our family here at Audi Denver. And we look at you and we see a guy who's very tough. And, my question is, can you talk about a time in your life, or maybe the toughest time, that has contributed to you being the type of fighter and person that you are now?
Yeah, I think, so I got into human services. I'm so lucky I have the best parents that a person could ask for. My dad would, risk being fired just to come watch us practice. And I know that every child does not have that. Most people, not most people, but not everybody has that. And when I was I was 11th grade, one of my best friends, he had the opposite of what I had, and he was going through a super tough time. One night, he tried to jump out of a moving vehicle. I chased him into the desert, and he eventually, I put him in bed. I was going to pick him up to go fishing the next morning, and he had committed suicide that night. And so I went home. They called me. They said he killed himself. I was 17, and I'm from a really small town. When you're being from a small town is very different from being from a city or living in a city. It's just a whole different way of living. So that really affected our community, and that was me being in the desert with him, trying to get him home. It was just me and him, and I specifically remember him saying, "You have parents, go home." So like that right there just broke me. Like I never understood how lucky I was, or yeah. And so once that happened to me, I really made it a goal. And right when I went to college, I was like, I want to do human services. I want to help at-risk youth. I want to help kids that don't have the opportunities that I had. My parents put themselves in mad debt just to get me to right here to be driving, a spaceship. So yeah, it's just it's something. It was ultimately like a super traumatic experience in my life, and it also put me into the mindset of one day at a time, because life is so fragile. And I think that we become complacent with that, but I think it's something that we should never forget.
Another question for Justin? State your name, please.
My name is Brandon. I want to test drive this R8 here. No, quick question. So,
Smart man.
back to the Eddie Alvarez fight, kind of your
You were at
style.
that
With,
one.
what's that?
You said you were at
No,
that
no, I
one.
wasn't.
Oh, okay.
I just am a huge fan. I watch all the fights. You have the background of wrestling, but your style is the farthest thing from wrestling. Very not energy efficient, if we will. Like, how did you come up with this style? It's, I mean, entertaining.
So I would love to debate you on that one. A 7-minute, a college wrestling match is 7 minutes. And when that was done, I could barely walk off of a match. My feet were cramping. My forearms were dead. You know, I could barely make a fist. And now I'm fighting for 25 minutes. So if I'm going to lose, it will absolutely not be because I got too tired from trying to wrestle, because that's not what I do anymore.
Yeah.
When I was a great wrestler, and I was a great wrestler because I was great at not getting taken down. And that's, if you look at the Eddie Alvarez fight, you know, you, not in hindsight, but in the actual moment, I'd be a fool to take a shot in that moment. I was kicked, you know, his leg was done.
Yeah.
His leg was mincemeat over there. And in my mind, it was like, I just need to touch his leg a couple more times. You know, when he pulled guard, would it have been smart for me to follow him down and maybe get a TKO there? Absolutely. But that was the hard-headedness in me, and ultimately that's why I'm getting paid. I'm getting paid because I make those choices. Same reason I made Michael Johnson stand up. That's what you guys want to see.
I agree.
And that's what I want to do. I don't want to follow him down. I don't want to get tired from wrestling. I don't do that anymore.
Hi, I was just going to say, he is a hometown hero. We
Yeah,
are from
Stafford,
his
Arizona.
hometown, and all our children. He comes back to all our schools. He comes back to all the kids, and they all just love him. So we want to say thank you.
Thank you for coming.
You know, Justin attended one of our Wish for Wheels bike giveaways, and normally the highlight of a bike giveaway is the kids all get a brand new bike and a brand new helmet. Audi Denver gave away over 500 bikes to kids in need, and the specific event that Justin showed up at, the bikes were less important. He was the main attraction, so it's pretty impressive. And secondly, I'd say that, you know, we've surrounded ourselves over the years with some premier athletes, and we're quite proud of that. Currently, Trevor Story from the Colorado Rockies, Coach Bednar from the Colorado Avalanche, and you know, the UFC was a new deal for us, and I have to give a shout out to Andy Benavides. Let's give him a round. There's a relationship here, and that has a lot to do with it, but our fundamental here at Audi Denver is creating and having relationships. So we're thrilled that you're in our camp of professional athletes. Any other questions? Before I hand it over to Mr. Romero, he's the king of questions. And your name, sir? Derek? What do you drive, Derek? Oh, I'm only kidding. You don't,
Sorry to be too loud. I also want to say thank you. Justin paid off a bunch of student lunch debt at Denver West High School, and I want to say thank you for that.
That's my hype man.
Yep.
Just kidding.
And my brother's one of those students, so I want to thank you for that too.
You're welcome, man.
I guess the question I wanted to ask, could you tell us about like your very first amateur fight?
My very first amateur fight.
Yep.
So I probably was scared for that one, only because I had never been in a street fight in my whole life. I had fought my brother countless times, but I had a roommate who had been in many fights, and he had claimed to knock out every single person he had ever fought. So me and him together were like, let's take a fight, you know, let's try it out. He was a wrestler, I was a wrestler, and it was it was in a baseball field, so the warm up area was in the dugout, so I could see everything, hear everything. And he fought right before me and got knocked out. So I was like, oh, shit, what am I doing? You know, he's been in fights, he's knocked people out, and I've never thrown a punch, never been punched. So I was like, I'm wrestling. And yeah, I slammed him, knocked him out in 26 seconds. And yeah, still didn't know how to fight after that. My roommate's in the back. Hey. He had long. If you're ever gonna fight, don't have long hair, because when you do it goes poof, poof, poof every time you get punched.
A fellow fighter question, Mr. Grant Neal. Give him a round.
Yeah. Bellator.
So, Justin, back to that, your first fights. How long did it take you before you really were able to put together a full, well-rounded, absolutely violent stand-up game? And when did you really feel comfortable? Because I know in your first couple fights, I just recently watched one where you slammed some dude and he peed himself afterwards.
Yeah,
so.
that was the one we were just talking about. It took a long time. As you know, you're being a wrestling and fighting. You know, they don't even belong in the same category, although they seem like they should. It's really fighting is a whole different ball game. There's nothing, you know, the adrenaline that you feel and that you have to become comfortable with will never be compared to wrestling. So that takes time. That took me, you know, I can't put a finger on it, but it was deep. It was once I got the belt. I would say once I got the belt in World Series and defended it 2 times, and then I think I started to become comfortable with the situation that I was putting myself in.
And we have a question from one of our Audi brand specialists, Mr. Errol Wade.
So one of the
Hey!
one of the things I was going to ask you is kind of personal, just coming from a single dad, is what made you get into human services? Because one of the things that I really appreciate about you is you come around and you're really down to earth, you're really easy to talk to. You seem like you're just on a human level, definitely on the professional level. I appreciate what you do and it's really inspiring, but you know, what made you choose that field?
Yeah, so I touched on it a little bit, and when that happened with me and my friend, that was the start. But ultimately, I was too young. You know, I made the decision that I've always wanted to help, but I didn't know what college was. I didn't know what human services was when I was 16 or 17, specifically. And then when I got to college, I lived with another guy who explained to me that it just took one positive influence to really to pave the path that he continued to walk and continues to walk to this day. And you know, with negative influences and with bad circumstances at times, you know, it just took one person to instill a bit of positivity and to change everything for him, you know, and now he's changing hundreds and hundreds of kids' lives. And that never would have happened if you know, there wasn't that one person to really take him under his wing and help him understand that someone's there for you. So I had that, and really it's just wanting to, I hate to think about someone going without that. And so that was it.
A couple things I figure we'll enter in this evening on the lighter side. So tell me a little bit more about the vehicle that you drive. You drive this vehicle for Audi, and you went with the electric vehicle. So
It really is a spaceship.
And it's the black one, all black.
All black, 22-inch rims. Hey. No, I've never driven anything like. You know, I had a Subaru before this, and I gotta say, it's really like a spaceship. The best part is bringing people in to ride with me. There's no car like it, and
What do
I would
they get like
recommend it.
75?
I'd
What is
recommend
it?
it.
75 miles an hour per gallon or something? 75 miles per gallon
there's
with
no
the
miles per gallon because it's 100% electric.
100% electric.
I plug it in every night when I get home. I have not been to a gas station in nearly 8 months. So that part's awesome. And then really, it's just a spaceship. Like, feels like I'm in 2025.
You
know,
say
I'm
like
ahead
kind
of the
of
game.
you feel like it floats or something, kind of like.
Yeah, the sound, it makes like a hovering noise. So when you're in your garage and you go to reverse, when you pull up on people, you pass people, you always see people like think you're flying by. It feels like you're hovering on the ground. It's so smooth. You could literally change the height of the suspension with a button.
So we haven't said this yet, but excluding professional fighters, there's a cage out back, and if you beat Justin and go 5 minutes with him, you get one of these. Isn't that right, Steve? Last one for me is, what's the most bizarre request I always ask this question because I've asked this to like Michael Jordan, that you've gotten online by email, by message from any kind of fan that I want you to come do
Yeah,
this or
they want-
marry me, Justin. What, you know?
Some people think they want me to punch them in the face.
Really?
Yeah, it makes no sense. I'm like, I'll do it, but you're gonna sign a paper first. You're going to sign something.
After this, I know there's probably a couple people that want to grab a couple pictures. You have
I'm
5 or
here.
10 minutes.
We're
Hey, so
here,
if you guys
baby.
want to grab a picture, Mr. Justin Gaethje, listen.
Hey, thank you guys for coming out. Honestly, this is the first time I've done something like this, and I was a little nervous. So thank you guys.